I've been living a double life for 10 years, Travis said, leaning back in his chair with an unsettling grin. 2 wives, 2 families. I pulled it off pretty well, huh? The anniversary dinner I'd spent hours preparing sat untouched between us. 20 years of marriage culminating in this moment, his confession delivered with the casual pride of someone describing a clever work maneuver. I carefully set down my wine glass, forcing my face into practiced neutrality, the same expression I'd used countless times with difficult clients. How interesting, I replied, my voice steady despite the violent trembling beneath my ribs. Travis laughed, apparently delighted by my composure. That's one of the things I've always liked about you, Jade. You're so controlled. Caroline would be throwing plates by now. Caroline. My husband's other wife had a name. I'm Jade Wilson, 47 years old, a public relations consultant who built my reputation on managing crises for others. The irony wasn't lost on me as I faced the collapse of my carefully constructed life in Wilmington. For 20 years, I'd wanted a simple but substantive marriage, mutual respect, comfortable companionship, and the quiet dignity of growing old together. Now I realized I'd been married to a fiction, a character Travis had been playing while his real life unfolded elsewhere. They live in Oregon, he continued, helping himself to more wine. Eugene, beautiful area. Caroline's a kindergarten teacher. The kids are 9 and 7. Children. He had children with this woman. The knife twisted deeper as I recalled years of discussions about remaining childless, his insistence that he wasn't father material, that our careers were too demanding for parenthood. I usually tell her I'm on business trips when I'm here, he explained, as if discussing a normal work arrangement. And when I'm with them, you think I'm at conferences or meeting clients. The logistics were impressive, I had to admit. The regular work trips, the conference calls he couldn't miss, the holidays he sometimes had to work through. A decade of elaborate lies constructed around our marriage. Why tell me now? I asked, surprised by my own curiosity. Travis shrugged. It's getting complicated. Caroline's been pushing for more time together. The kids are getting older, asking questions. And frankly, maintaining 2 completely separate lives is exhausting. So what happens now? My throat constricted around the words. Nothing changes, he said firmly. This is still my home too. I've built a life here just as real as the one in Oregon. I'm not giving up either. The casual entitlement in his voice chilled me. He wasn't confessing to ease his conscience or because he'd chosen one family over the other. He was simply adjusting his strategy, bringing me into his deception as an accomplice rather than a victim. As Travis launched into more details about his other life, I noticed something disturbing. The confident smirk, the self-satisfied tone, the complete lack of remorse. This wasn't a man worried about consequences. This was a man who believed himself untouchable. And that meant whatever was coming would be worse than I could possibly imagine. Travis and I met at a pharmaceutical industry conference in Chicago. I was handling crisis communications for a client. He was a rising star in pharmaceutical sales. We connected over drinks, laughing about the pretentiousness of corporate jargon and the absurdity of hotel conference rooms. That easy rapport continued through dinner, then breakfast, then weekend visits between Philadelphia and Wilmington. 6 months later, we were married in a small ceremony. Nothing extravagant, just close friends and my parents. Travis's family was notably absent. Estranged, he explained. They never approved of my career choices. I built my PR consultancy from the ground up while Travis climbed the corporate ladder at Meridian Pharmaceuticals. His job required frequent travel, a fact I accepted as part of our marriage. When he was offered a regional sales director position that would require even more time on the road, I encouraged him to take it, believing in the partnership we were building. I rearranged my client's schedule to accommodate his comings and goings, ensuring we maximized our time together. We purchased our craftsman-style home in Wilmington's historic district, using primarily my savings. Travis's contribution was smaller due to student loans he was aggressively paying down. I spent weekends restoring original woodwork while he handled the paperwork and finances. I trusted him completely. For the first decade, our marriage felt solid. We developed comfortable routines for when he was home: Sunday brunches at Bellamy's, evening walks through Rockford Park, quiet nights reading in the living room. We were partners, or so I thought. Looking back, I see warning signs I chose to ignore. The separate bank account he maintained for work expenses, the calls he would take outside or in his car, the inconsistent stories about which cities he'd visited, his passionate objection when I suggested joining him on a work trip to Seattle, citing company policy that spouses couldn't attend certain events. There was also his phone, always password protected, always kept within reach. Once, when it chimed with a text while he was showering, I glanced at the screen and saw only C with a heart emoji. When I mentioned it casually, he explained it was Craig from the office sending information about a client. 4 years ago, I found a receipt for women's perfume in his suitcase, an expensive brand I never wore. A gift for my assistant, he claimed. Her husband's battling cancer, and the team wanted to do something nice. The explanation seemed plausible, even thoughtful. I felt guilty for questioning him. Last year, a woman called our home phone asking for Travis. When I explained he was traveling, she quickly apologized for the wrong number and hung up. Her voice sounded flustered, young. That night, I opened his laptop to check our shared calendar for his return date. The browser history revealed searches for schools in Eugene, Oregon, a city Travis had never mentioned visiting for work. I closed the laptop and poured myself a glass of wine, dismissing the knot of suspicion forming in my stomach. Travis had always been transparent about his travel schedule. There had to be a reasonable explanation. Our anniversary morning began like any other day. Travis mentioned he had something special planned for dinner. I spent hours preparing his favorite meal: beef Wellington, roasted vegetables, chocolate souffle, and setting the table with our wedding china. When he emerged from his study dressed in a suit I'd never seen before, I thought it was part of the surprise. Instead, he sat me down for his confession. Now, as he continued detailing his double life over our cooling anniversary dinner, each revelation felt like another brick added to a wall, separating me from the life I thought I had. Caroline and I met at a conference in Portland, he explained, refilling his wine glass. There was this immediate connection. I wasn't planning for things to develop, but... He shrugged, as if the progression from affair to second marriage had been inevitable, beyond his control. You married her? I managed to ask, mentally calculating the timeline. Legally? His slight hesitation told me everything. Not exactly. We had a ceremony. She wears a ring. The neighbors think we're married. But bigamy is illegal, I pointed out, clinging to this technicality. Exactly, Travis agreed, seeming pleased by my understanding. Which is why it's better for everyone if we maintain the status quo. You and I are legally married. Caroline and I have what she believes is a marriage. Everyone gets what they need. And what about what I need? My voice remained calm despite the anger building inside me. Did you consider that I might need a husband who isn't living a lie? Travis's expression hardened slightly. I've given you a good life, Jade. Financial security, a beautiful home, regular companionship. He gestured around our dining room as if the physical trappings of our marriage were adequate compensation for his betrayal. Half of your companionship, I corrected. Don't be dramatic. I've always been there when it mattered. His dismissive tone suggested this was a minor detail, not worth dwelling on. Besides, our arrangement has benefits. You've had freedom to build your career without the demands of children, without a husband underfoot all the time. The calculated nature of his deception suddenly became clear. This wasn't a man who had slipped into a double life through weakness or poor choices. This was deliberate architecture, 2 separate lives designed and maintained with precision. I need time to process this, I said, standing up from the table. Of course, Travis responded magnanimously. Take all the time you need. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. He glanced at his watch. I should call Caroline before it gets too late. She thinks I'm at a conference in Chicago. The casual shift from dropping his bombshell to maintaining his lie with a phone call left me speechless. I retreated to our bedroom, my bedroom now, and sat on the edge of the bed, listening to his muffled voice down the hall. His tone was warm, affectionate, punctuated by gentle laughter. He was speaking to his family, I realized. His real family. Morning found me still awake, thoughts circling like vultures. Travis appeared at breakfast freshly showered, dressed for work as if nothing had changed. "I've been thinking," he said, pouring coffee. "We should take a trip. Reconnect. I know this is a lot to absorb." I stared at him, this stranger wearing my husband's face. "You're still planning to maintain both relationships?" "It's worked for 10 years," he replied pragmatically. "We just need to establish some new parameters." In that moment, watching him butter toast with methodical precision, a terrible clarity washed over me. Travis wasn't seeking forgiveness or understanding. He was simply adjusting his strategy, bringing me into his conspiracy to make his deception more convenient. And he expected me to comply. That evening, I approached Travis in his makeshift office, formerly our shared home office, where he was working on his laptop. "We need to talk about what happens next," I said, standing in the doorway. He glanced up, offering a practiced smile. "I was hoping you'd come around. Sit down." I remained standing. "I want you to leave." His smile faltered, then reasserted itself. "Jade, be reasonable. This is my home too." "Is it? Because it seems like you have another home, with your other family." Travis sighed, adopting the patient tone he used when explaining complex concepts to clients. "I've invested just as much in this house as you have." An outright lie. My savings had purchased the property, my income had paid off most of the mortgage, and my hands had restored much of its historic character. "I want a divorce," I continued, my voice steady. "I've already spoken to an attorney." The flash of anger in his eyes was quickly masked. "That would be a mistake," he said calmly. "Think about the complications, the division of assets, the public embarrassment when people learn the details." His thinly veiled threat was clear. "Fight me, and I'll make sure everyone knows how easily you were fooled." "I'm prepared for that," I replied, though the thought of my clients and friends discovering Travis's deception made my stomach clench. He leaned back, studying me with clinical detachment. "You know, I never took you for vindictive. I thought you'd understand the practicality of the situation." "Practicality?" I echoed in disbelief. "Yes, practicality," he repeated firmly. "Some marriages involve affairs, some involve separate bedrooms, some involve other compromises. Ours involves separate locations and responsibilities. The underlying structure isn't that different." His ability to rationalize his betrayal was astounding. According to Travis's warped logic, maintaining two separate families was just another form of marriage arrangement. "And what about Caroline?" I challenged. "Does she know about this practical arrangement?" A flicker of discomfort crossed his face. "Caroline doesn't need to know everything. She's happy with what we have." "So your solution is to continue lying to her while expecting me to accept knowing?" He shrugged. "Everyone gets what they need. She gets the traditional family life she wants. You get your independence and career. I maintain connections to both worlds." "And what about integrity? Honesty? Commitment?" "Those are social constructs," he countered dismissively. "Arbitrary boundaries that don't reflect the complexity of human relationships." I stared at the stranger before me, wondering how I'd missed the fundamental emptiness at his core. Travis wasn't just a liar. He was a man without moral boundaries, capable of justifying any behavior that served his desires. "I want you out of this house by the end of the week," I said. His expression hardened. "That's not happening, Jade. Let me be clear. I'm not leaving. This house is as much mine as yours. If you want to end our marriage, we'll sell it and split the proceeds." The thought of losing my home, the space I'd lovingly restored with my own hands, felt like another violation. Travis knew exactly how much this house meant to me. You should also know, he continued, his voice deceptively gentle, that I've taken precautions. I've documented some of your more creative accounting practices with certain clients. Nothing illegal, of course, but potentially embarrassing if they became public. My blood ran cold. He was referring to occasions when I'd helped clients manage sensitive communications during crises, all within ethical boundaries, but easily mischaracterized to damage my professional reputation. Are you threatening me? I asked, already knowing the answer. I'm suggesting we find a mutually beneficial solution instead of a mutually assured destruction, he replied smoothly. I'll be staying in Eugene until next Tuesday. That gives you time to reconsider your position. He turned back to his laptop, dismissing me from what had once been our shared space. I retreated to the bedroom, mind racing with implications. Travis wasn't just refusing to leave, he was actively threatening my livelihood if I pursued divorce. That night, I pulled out my laptop and began searching for divorce attorneys specializing in complex cases. As I scrolled through search results, an email notification appeared. Travis had booked a flight to Eugene for the following morning. He would be gone for 5 days. 5 days to figure out my next move. After Travis left for Eugene, I met with Eleanor Voss, a divorce attorney known for handling high-profile cases with discretion. Her office was understated but elegant, much like the woman herself. Bigamy is both a civil and criminal matter, Eleanor explained after I shared Travis's confession. Even if he's not legally married to this Caroline, he's committed fraud against both of you. He's threatening to damage my professional reputation if I pursue divorce, I added. Eleanor's expression hardened. Blackmail on top of everything else. Your husband has been busy. What are my options? Document everything. We need evidence of the double life, the threats, any financial impropriety. Given what you've told me about the house purchase and mortgage payments, we should forensically examine your finances. I spent the next 2 days gathering documents, downloading bank statements, and compiling a comprehensive record of our marriage. What I discovered was worse than I'd imagined. Travis had been systematically draining our joint accounts for years, transferring small amounts to a separate account I had no access to. He'd taken out a second mortgage on our home 18 months earlier, using a forged signature on the paperwork, and diverted over $175,000 to unknown purposes. With shaking hands, I called Eleanor. It's financial fraud, she confirmed after reviewing the documents I'd emailed. This changes the landscape significantly. We need to move quickly to protect your assets and credit. Following her advice, I froze our joint accounts, reported the fraudulent mortgage to the bank, and placed a fraud alert with credit bureaus. But my deepest shock came that evening when I found a hidden compartment in Travis's desk containing multiple identification documents, driver's licenses, credit cards, even a passport, all bearing his photo, but different names. This isn't just about a second family, I told Eleanor during our emergency meeting the next day. Travis is living multiple lives under multiple identities. We need to involve law enforcement, she advised grimly. This goes beyond divorce proceedings. We're looking at potential identity theft, financial fraud across state lines, possibly federal crimes. The FBI agent who interviewed me was professionally detached as I shared my discoveries. We've seen cases like this before, Agent Simmons explained. Individuals maintaining multiple identities and relationships. Often there's significant financial fraud involved. What happens now? I asked. We investigate, gather evidence, build a case. In the meantime, you should prepare for your husband's return. He'll discover the frozen accounts soon. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Travis. What the hell have you done? Accounts frozen? Call me immediately. I showed Agent Simmons the message. He'll be back tomorrow. We need more time to build our case, she admitted. If possible, don't let on that you've discovered the extent of his activities. You want me to pretend everything's normal when he returns? The thought of facing Travis, knowing what I now knew, made me physically ill. Just for a few days. We're obtaining warrants, coordinating with Oregon authorities. If he suspects he's under investigation, he might destroy evidence or flee. Trapped. I was being asked to maintain my own deception with a man who had deceived me for a decade. I'll try, I promised, though uncertainty gnawed at me. After Agent Simmons left, I wandered through the house, our house, seeing it with new eyes. The framed photos of our travels, the wedding portrait on the mantel, the anniversary gifts accumulated over years, all artifacts of a marriage that had been a carefully constructed illusion. In our bedroom, I opened Travis's closet and ran my fingers over his precisely arranged shirts. The Travis I knew was orderly, methodical. Now I understood that this meticulousness wasn't just a personality trait. It was a necessity for someone maintaining multiple lives. The man I had loved, had believed I knew intimately, was a fiction. And tomorrow, he would return expecting to find his dutiful wife, willing to accommodate his betrayal for the sake of practicality. I sank onto the bed, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the deception and the realization that I was now being asked to become a deceiver myself, if only temporarily. How many of our moments together had been genuine? Had he ever truly loved me, or had I simply been a convenient cover story, a respectable facade for a man living in shadows? Travis returned the next evening, his expression thunderous as he slammed the front door. I was prepared, seated calmly in the living room with a glass of wine. "What the hell is going on with our accounts?" he demanded without preamble. "There seems to be a problem with the bank," I replied, the rehearsed lie feeling strange on my tongue. "Some kind of security freeze. I've been trying to sort it out." His eyes narrowed, assessing my face for signs of deception. I maintained the neutral expression I'd perfected over decades in PR. "And you didn't think to call me?" "You were with your family," I replied, letting just enough edge into my voice to sound believably bitter. I didn't want to interrupt. Travis's posture relaxed slightly. He believed I was simply being petty, retaliating in a small way for his betrayal. "This is exactly the kind of childish reaction I was hoping to avoid," he sighed, pouring himself a drink. "We need to approach this situation like adults." "You're right," I conceded, swallowing my disgust. "I've had time to think while you were gone. Perhaps we should discuss parameters." His eyebrows rose in surprise, then satisfaction. "I knew you'd be reasonable, Jade. You always have been." For the next hour, I listened as Travis outlined his vision for our future, how he would divide his time between Oregon and Delaware, how we would maintain separate finances going forward, how I would need to accept certain realities about our relationship. "The most important thing is discretion," he emphasized. "Caroline can never know about you." "Of course not," I murmured. "And what about our financial situation? The frozen accounts?" "I'll handle it," he assured me with practiced confidence. "I have resources you don't know about." I bet you do, I thought, thinking of the hidden documents I'd discovered. "There's just one thing I need from you," Travis continued, leaning forward. "Access to your personal accounts, temporarily. My funds are tied up in investments, and I need operating capital until this bank situation resolves." The audacity was breathtaking. After systematically defrauding me for years, he was now asking me to willingly hand over more money. "How much do you need?" I asked, pretending to consider it. "50,000 should cover immediate expenses," he replied casually, as if requesting pocket change. "I'll need to move some investments around," I stalled. "Give me a few days." Travis nodded, satisfied he'd successfully managed me once again. "I knew you'd understand." That night, he slept in the guest room while I lay awake, listening to the occasional buzz of his phone, messages from his other life, his other family. In the morning, he left early for a meeting, giving me a disturbingly normal peck on the cheek as he departed. The moment he left, I called Agent Simmons. "He's asking for money. $50,000. "This is good," she replied. "We can use this. Are you willing to make the transfer under controlled conditions? We can track the money, see where it goes. Yes, I agreed without hesitation. What do I need to do? The next 3 days operated like a carefully choreographed dance. Under FBI supervision, I transferred funds to an account they had established. Travis accepted the money without question, immediately transferring portions to other accounts, unwittingly creating an evidence trail for investigators to follow. Each evening, I maintained my act of reluctant acceptance as Travis continued refining his vision for our bizarre arrangement. Each morning, I reported his activities to Agent Simmons. Everything was proceeding according to plan until the 4th day, when I returned home to find Travis in my home office, my laptop open before him. Interesting reading, he said coldly, turning the screen toward me. Displayed was my email exchange with Eleanor Voss, outlining our divorce strategy and the evidence we'd gathered. My stomach dropped. I'd been so careful to cover my tracks, but had forgotten about the automatic sync between my phone and laptop. One oversight had unraveled everything. So this is how you respond to my honesty? Travis asked, his voice dangerously quiet. By plotting behind my back? Travis, Save it. He stood, closing the laptop with deliberate calm. I've already taken precautions. Your so-called evidence has been deleted, and I've called in some favors to expedite selling this house. The room seemed to tilt slightly. You can't sell this house without my signature. His smile was chilling. Can't I? It seems we both have talents for forgery. As he moved toward the door, I realized with horrible clarity that I had severely underestimated Travis. He wasn't just a liar and a bigamist. He was someone capable of destroying my entire life without remorse. I'm leaving for a few days, he announced from the doorway. When I return, I expect everything to be back to normal. No lawyers, no frozen accounts, no police, or things will get very unpleasant for you. The front door closed behind him with quiet finality, leaving me alone with the knowledge that my careful plan had just collapsed, and Travis now knew I was coming for him. I called Agent Simmons immediately. Travis found my emails, he knows everything. Where is he now? He left. Said he's going away for a few days. My voice shook. He threatened to forge my signature to sell the house. This changes our timeline. We need to move now before he destroys evidence or transfers more assets. Within an hour, federal agents were searching our house, documenting the hidden compartments in Travis's desk, collecting his laptop and financial records. Similar actions were taking place simultaneously in Eugene, where agents had located the home Travis shared with Caroline. Agent Simmons showed me photographs of Travis entering a bank's safe deposit box facility 30 minutes after leaving our house. We believe this is where he keeps his alternate identification documents. We're securing a warrant now. That evening, as I sat in my kitchen surrounded by the detritus of the FBI search, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Is this Jade Wilson? A woman's voice, tentative and strained. Yes, who's calling? My name is Caroline Phillips. I think we're married to the same man. My heart lurched. Caroline. Yes. I'm sorry you're learning about this like this. A choked laugh. The FBI searched my house today. They showed me pictures of you, of your marriage certificate. 10 years of my life, just lies. I only learned about it a week ago, I offered, unsure what comfort I could possibly provide to this stranger who was also my husband's victim. They're saying Thomas, Travis, whatever his name really is, they're saying he has other families, not just us. The revelation didn't surprise me as much as it should have. How many? They've identified 4 so far, in different states, with different names. Her voice broke. Who is he? Who did we marry? Before I could answer, Agent Simmons arrived at my door, her expression triumphant. We've got him. Travis, or should I say, Jonathan Wells, was just arrested trying to board a flight to Zurich with falsified documents. As she showed me his booking photograph, I felt a strange sense of vindication mingled with grief. The man I'd built my life around wasn't just a liar, he was a phantom. The evidence mounted with breathtaking speed once authorities began connecting the dots between Travis's multiple identities. Beyond Caroline and me, investigators discovered relationships with women in Minnesota and Arizona, each believing she was his only wife, each with a different version of my husband living in her home. The scope of his deception was staggering. Travis, whose real name turned out to be Michael Chambers, had maintained these separate lives for over a decade, crafting distinct personalities for each relationship. With me, he was Travis Wilson, ambitious pharmaceutical executive, pragmatic and precise. With Caroline, he was Thomas Phillips, devoted father, middle school science teacher. The other identities revealed similar chameleon-like adaptations. His financial crimes were equally elaborate. Beyond the fraud committed against his wives, he'd been embezzling from pharmaceutical companies for years, using his position in sales to orchestrate complex schemes involving kickbacks and falsified orders. I attended his arraignment, watching from the back of the courtroom as the man I'd built my life around pleaded not guilty to 27 federal charges. He never once looked in my direction. In the months that followed, I rebuilt my life piece by piece. The FBI unfroze my personal accounts, and the fraudulent mortgage was removed from my credit history. I kept the house, though many rooms remained untouched, preserved in a strange limbo I wasn't yet ready to resolve. Caroline and I spoke occasionally, finding unexpected solace in shared experience. Her children, believing their father was simply on an extended business trip, were being gently prepared for the truth through therapy sessions. 6 months after Travis's arrest, I received a letter from him. The handwriting I'd seen on countless anniversary cards and grocery lists now seemed alien, belonging to a stranger. "I never meant to hurt you," he wrote. "In my own way, I loved you." I burned the letter without finishing it. On what would have been our 21st anniversary, I hired painters to transform our bedroom, the last space still bearing the traces of our shared life. As the primer covered the walls, erasing the sage green we'd chosen together, I felt something tight within me finally release. The man I married had never existed, but I did. I still do. And that, I've discovered, is enough.